Ladies and gentlemen, there are people who are legends in the music industry that we've never heard of, or you maybe not have. One of those guys is Hereward Kaye, who has just one of the most fascinating careers in music. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, hello. I haven't seen you for a long, long time. I used to live in Spain, didn't I?
Yeah.
And we sort of knew each other quite well then.
Now, I want to take you back. I'm not going to take you all the way back to Kaye's Tools, but I want to take you back to Cafe Society.
Yes.
With Tom Robinson and Raphael Doyle. That band was discovered by one of my great heroes, and that's Ray Davies of the Kinks. How did that come about?
Well, we used to have a residency at a folk club in Earl's Court that's still going to this day, called the Troubadour. We weren't really a folk group. It's just we couldn't afford electric guitars, So we basically had three acoustic guitars. We were three friends who were all songwriters and singers, and we all wrote wildly different songs to each other. But when we put it all together, we loved each other's songs. We sang harmonies on each other's songs, and I guess we were a kind of in the same sort of style, you would say, maybe as Crosby, Stills and Nash, that sort of thing. But very much a kind of acoustic version of that. And we used to do a folk club called the Troubadour, and one night Ray Davies turned up to check us out, and we were told he was coming, and we could, like you, really, this guy, even then he was a hero. The man who wrote Waterloo Sunset and Days, they're great, great songs. And suddenly there he was at the back, very, very recognisable guy. We'd been told there was no way he was going to get up and sing, so not to try and involve him. And then in the interval, somebody came backstage and said Ray Davies wants to do a few numbers, and he wondered if you'd sing on them. So the next thing I knew, we were literally on stage with Ray, and he was singing, Chilly Chilly, and we were going, la and we were in the middle of Waterloo Sunset and Days and all those great numbers,
Brilliant.
And he started one of the earliest independent record labels in the country called Conk. So it was like Kinks, like the Kinks, but it was Konk.
Yes.
And
yes.
he signed us to his label, and produced our album. So we got to know him quite well. And the good thing was, I got a lot of songwriting tips from him. So he very much liked our songs as well, but just the way he suggested little tweaks and edits always improved it,
Now, you actually are one of the people who have recorded at Abbey Road, which is like hallowed ground. Did you have that sort of hallowed ground feeling when you were in there?
Oh, completely. I mean, I saw the Beatles live when I was 10 years old, Lee. And it was, even though I was so young, it was a completely life-defining moment for me. And the incredible thing was, the night I saw them was the night that President Kennedy was assassinated. It was one of those, you always remember where you were when moments, but I was always going to remember it anyway, because I was watching the Beatles and I was in something like row I, so I was very close to the front. I had John Lennon smack in front of me. I had screaming girls being passed over my head, and they were fainted, and they were buried out into ambulances. and I just looked at it, and John Lennon kept going, "Shut up, we can't hear ourselves play." And there were hails of jelly babies hitting the stage. And Paul was saying, do you mind not throwing any more jelly babies? We don't like them anymore. And I almost, all these years later, I can still remember every minute of that gig, and it kind of changed my life. So to get back to your question, when I found myself in a situation of recording at EMI's Abbey Road Studios, boy, did I was more than aware it was hallowed ground. Yeah, it was incredible. And I've actually recorded in there two big projects on two different occasions. And the first one, I was actually the last act to use the Beatles' famous Abbey Road number 2 studio. So we were the last act before they ripped out the desk, updated the whole place. And so we were actually recording on the old valve desk that you'd look at it and you just knew that the White Album had been recorded on that.
Wow.
And, all this kind of stuff. The most amazing Abbey Road album, which I still think is the best record I've ever enjoyed, to this day.
Mm. Now, after that, I think it was a time of doing a bit of farming in Lincolnshire, but then you came back and got involved in a pageant at Camden Lock as part of the Capital Jazz Festival.
Yes.
A Midsummer Night's
Yes.
Dick.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a bit there, Lee.
But that became A Midsummer Night's Dick, didn't it?
So we played it. Yes, it was. They asked us to provide. This is my friend Robert Longdon and myself. They asked us to provide something watery because they wanted to do. They wanted to do a sort of midsummer festival, and so we tried to. They wanted something theatrical, some sort of pageant, and so we kind of jumped on. My idea was Robert's idea. I don't want to steal any credit here. He said, let's do Moby Dick, because that's kind of watery, And he found a boat, he towed it into the middle of Camden Lock, and we did this whole 1 hour musical that we knocked up. I wrote the music, and he wrote the book, the play, the script. And we did it on this boat at 11 o'clock at night, to just when it was last orders, when it was kind of kicking out at the bar time. So nobody was listening to us at all. But luckily, one member of the cast, we found out, played for London Broncos, which was an American football team in London.
Yes.
So we got them all along to do all their kind of hacker-type movements. And that was incredible. That really grabbed the crowd. And so we ended up kind of going down quite well, but only because of this American football team. But that was the start of Moby Dick, the musical, that has followed me through my entire life and led me to write the book that is just about to be launched, called The Ship Hits the Fans, which is the inside story of that musical Moby Dick.
Yeah, because that went. I mean, it went to the West End. It got performed on a ship in Bristol. That went all over the place.
I mean, the big bit of the journey was the West End bit, because we sort of. I mean, it was pretty ropey, the first thing that there was the pageant at Camden Lock. But over the years, we added songs. We learned more about how musical theatre works. And it basically just got better and better. And we got to a stage where we sent out, I demoed up 6 of the best songs from it in my home studio. Robert kind of poshed up the script, and then we sent 6 scripts and 6 demo tapes out to 6 different producers, and only one of them got back to us. But it was the one that we wanted to get back to us. It was Cameron McIntosh, who is the biggest producer in the world to this day. His shows at the time were Cats, Phantom of the Opera, and Les Miserables and Miss Saigon.
Wow.
Those were all his shows, and they were all playing in London. So to get a phone call from him, hello, this is Cameron McIntosh phoning from New York. I really like your musical. Get back to me. And I swear we didn't take it seriously because all our friends knew we'd sent these tapes out. So we just thought it was somebody pretending to be Cameron.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, he rang back and he said, look, it's you, Cameron McIntosh, don't want to speak to me. So we got in touch, and it turned out he had a little a tryout theatre in Oxford, the old fire station, and he gave us 10 grand to put it on so he could have a look at it. So we managed to get that up to 20 grand and did the kind of biggest spectacular we possibly could for the money. Begged, borrowed and stole actors from theatre schools and sets and the whole thing. And we put it on and he loved it and he brought it into the West End. So it was the most incredible journey for us to suddenly see the poster for our show, for our little show, on the sides and fronts of London buses as they sailed past me on Euston Road, you know. It was quite an experience.
Now, you also worked with Rick Wakeman. In fact, you were lead vocalist with Rick Wakeman at one time.
I did. I did an album with him. Again, I'd been in those days. You know, there wasn't even the internet. There wasn't the whole world of self-publishing, self-releasing online. You know, Spotify. The whole way though. People don't sit around nowadays, Lee, and wait for a record deal. You know, they get on with being their own record company, their own publishers, etc., and building up a hell of a following. But in those days, it was literally about, there were only a few decent London studios. You had to save up all your money to go in there and demo 3 of your songs. And then you'd be carrying them around on a kind of, in your back pocket, on a cassette with kind of dust in it, you know, pocket dust, got a gathering dust in there. And that was the situation when I was in a pub in London, and Rick Wakeman came striding up to me, and he said, "Excuse me, I just overheard your name. Is your name really Hereward?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "After Hereward the Wake." I said, "Yeah, my dad had to name me after this historical character, Hereward the Wake." And he said, "Because I'm descended from Hereward the Wake, hence my surname, Wakeman, man of Wake. I'm Rick Wakeman, how do you do?" And he stuck his hand out, and I didn't stick my hand in his. I stuck my cassette in his hand.
Smooth move.
"Great, Rick, nice to meet you. Listen to this." And I caught the last train back to Lincolnshire, and within a couple of weeks, he was on the phone. He said, "I like your voice, and I'm making a new album. Would you like to be the singer?" And I kind of thought it would be a few days' work, but Rick didn't work like that in those days. It was 6 weeks, and most of it was spent in the pub, to be honest. But I got to hear some amazing stories.
I bet.
Most of which I really couldn't repeat. But he was a great storyteller, a great practical joker, a lot of fun, and a quite awesome musician. We'd sit there in the control room. We'd be listening back to the playback of whatever we'd recorded, and he'd be sitting there listening, and meanwhile composing a new piece of music on manuscript. So he was actually dealing with 2 bits of music at the same time. He was very gifted.
Now, we can't ignore the fact that you were a member of the Flying Pickets and toured with them for, gosh, that was a few years, wasn't it?
Well, it was 13 years. Not
Wow.
kind of getting on for 14 years, to be honest. Again, it was a job. They found me. They headhunted me, if you like, and I went and had a chat with them and joined the group. This was after their number one single, and the lead singer, one with the sideburns, had left. And they were looking for a new guy, and I joined them, and it just went on and on, that job. I mean, it was a very privileged life in one way, because we did 100 shows a year for 13 years, and not one of them was in the UK, because, you know, the UK has a very short attention span for acts that had actually, once you've had your hit, it takes a lot more work to stay there, whereas there's a lot of people who have a couple of hits, and then they basically tour the world and certainly tour Europe. There are certain countries that take you and they just ask you back again and again. So you can make a decent living, you know, just going back to the countries where the band stays much loved year after year after year. So, you know, we were we'd had an amazing time in Australia, Austria, Germany, you know, the countries are really where we've been really successful. But for me, joining a group like that, I never knew when I jumped on a plane if it was going to be a five-star hotel or a kind of chilly little ibis box room, you know, and a club that was kind of sticky underfoot, because some of the countries that you play, you're trying to build the act up for the first time. And others, you jump straight off the plane and you're signing autographs and going on breakfast TV. So it was a strange and wonderful experience, but it did go on a hell of a long time. And when it got to the year 2000, I actually said to my wife, this was at the end of 99, I said, I refuse to spend another millennium in that group. So I sort of left, because it was time to be a bit more grown up. It's a strange thing when you're in a band. We were like a boy band before there were boy bands, you know. It was just six guys traveling together, you know, all in the same hotels all the time, in the same tour bus, on the same stage. And you get used to not doing anything for yourself. Your tour manager has your passport, he gives you your money, he gives you your ticket, he tells you which gate to be at, he tells you when you come out there'll be a driver and a bus waiting for us. It's all like that. So you actually, it's almost like going back to being a child. And when it went to the year of 2000, I'd spent 13 years of that. I did think it was time to actually be a little bit more of an adult.
Now we come to the book. You mentioned it just a little bit earlier on. Ship Hits the Fan, and this is the story of the making of Moby Dick. Yeah.
Well, it is, because that as I said, that musical has threaded through my life. It was in the West End, then I was in America with it, converting it, almost, you know, translating it into American. You know, it's sort of, they needed a very different kind of model of theatre. Of a theatre piece. So I was over there working on that, still with Cameron all the time. And, you know, even in 2016, it had a 25th anniversary production in London. So I was involved again with the show. So I just, I thought that was maybe a story that could be told, that would be quite interesting to people, because it spans so many decades of popular culture, you know. It's been, my journey has almost been the journey of popular music, because from seeing the Beatles in 1963, that was when music really became the politics, the religion, the language that everybody understood. and it just mushroomed, ballooned, whatever, alliterate, whatever you want to call it, and till it became the behemoth that it is today.
Now you are now involved, as far as I know, you're actually running Rock School, which is part of the government's New Deal for musicians. You teach guitar, drums, songwriting. I mean,
yes, all those things, and keyboard. I enjoy singing. I enjoy teaching songwriting most. I love it when I have somebody who comes in. I mean, I've got quite a few clients that I call my midlifers, and they're the people who, have that guitar gathering dust in the attic, or wrote a few songs when they were younger. But, people's careers, their families' life, is what happens when you're busy making other plans, as John Lennon said, and it takes over, and that instrument just gathers dust. So I have a lot of people who don't, I always wish I'd carried on writing songs, and I've actually got them. I say to them, well, why don't you come to me and let me really get my hands dirty with your work artistically. Let me get involved and help you mould it, and then we'll record it beautifully. Then it's up to you to release it online. So they kind of go away with hopefully decent recordings. And as I said to you earlier in this chat, Lee, this is the age where about publishing yourself out there, getting your own music out there, and seeing if you can get any traction. So, I've got people in their mid-40s and 50s, and 60s kind of getting their music out there on Spotify and YouTube and all the rest of it.
Fabulous. Now, if somebody wants a copy of the book, and why wouldn't you, what's the best way of getting hold of it? I know you've done some signings recently, but if you want a copy, how do we get one?
Well, I'm in the middle of arranging that, to be honest. The book isn't actually out this week. It's out next week. I had the book launch at the Comedy Store in London on Friday, the 16th of September. And by that date, I'll then have the whole online of it signed up. But I would be very happy for any of your listeners to get in touch with me, and I could directly send them the book. So I'm happy to give you my email, and if any of your listeners would be interested in my book, The Ship Hits the Fans, then to email me, and we'll go from there, and I'll get it across to you. So the email is herewardmusic@gmail.com. Be careful with the name Hereward. Everybody gets it wrong. I've been called Hereford. I've been called Herod. So it's HEREWARD, herewardmusic@gmail.com.
The easiest way to say it is Hereward, but Hereward is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, it is. I prefer Hereward because that's my actual name.
Yeah, it's the proper way. Look, Hereward, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant chatting with you again. As you say,
I've really enjoyed it.
It's been a few years, but it was worth the wait. We wish you all the best with the book, all the best with Rock School, and hopefully one of these days you'll get back over here and we can have a beer or something, or a tapper in the sunshine.
That sounds lovely. Yes, I'm sure we do it one of these fine days.
Brilliant. Okay, sir. Thank you once again for your time. Take care, and I hope we'll catch up. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.